So hi and welcome to the Tech Coffee Break for June. I'm Bob Birch, member of the NDSU Extension Innovation Team, and our plan today was to talk a little bit about smartphone hacks, tips, or tricks, or questions that you have about using your smartphone and kind of getting the most out of it. Before we get started, just a reminder that you can find out more about the NDSU Extension Innovation Team at www.ag.ndsu.edu/innovation, and you'll find a link there to our Facebook group for NDSU Extension Innovation as well. So if you haven't joined that group on Facebook, I encourage you to do so and to check out more information about the NDSU Extension Innovation Team. So while we get started, does anybody have any smartphone tips, tricks, hacks that you are interested in sharing, or that you have questions about how do you do a particular thing on your smartphone?
I'll go first. I have a cleaner program that would love for me to purchase the paid subscription, but in the meantime, it is forever telling me you've got junk files that need to be cleaned. Okay, you can do that. You're running too hot. Do you want to cool this down? How does it think it's going to cool my phone down? What really does it think it's doing, and do you recommend a cleaner?
Well, let anybody else jump in. I don't use a specifically a cleaner, but I have a battery doctor program app that helps me save battery. So mostly it'll help me shut down apps that are running in the background. So a lot of times apps, especially things like Google Chrome, Facebook, sometimes they'll be running processes in the background even though you don't have the app on. So shutting those things down can save some battery life. If you don't have a phone where you know easily how to access your files, I have a Samsung phone. If you have a Samsung phone, you have a Files app, so you can really see all the files that are on your phone. But before I had a Samsung, it was really hard to find the files that were on my phone. Sometimes it was like, sometimes it was junk, like you're talking about, Linda. But sometimes it was just like, you clicked a link to, for me, like I had like 15 versions of the West Fargo, City of West Fargo recycling calendar on my phone because I'd look it up and it's a PDF, so it would download every time. So if you don't know how to access that stuff, having some kind of cleaner app can help you do that. But if you know how to get into your files on your phone, you can probably do that as well. Does anybody else use a battery saver or app or any kind of cleanup app for cleaning up junk files?
I have an Android phone, and Google Photos will often remind me to take old pictures off, or if I've taken pictures of papers. I take my picture of my grocery list every week, and so every few weeks it will say, hey, if you archive these and they're backed up on Google Photos, then you have more room on your phone. So I don't have a specific app because I feel oftentimes they affect my performance.
Anyone else? How about a battery saver app or just tips and tricks for saving battery?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I go in I have an iPhone. So what I go into is basically settings, and to save on both data and battery, I turn off specific apps for using on data, so I only use specific apps when I'm outside of my wireless net or outside of my wireless in my house, so I can't access them accidentally out and about, and that actually helps save battery big time. So I go into my settings and I go under cellular and just turn off some of the apps that I don't need when I'm out of the house.
That's awesome. Thanks, Rachel. Does anybody know if that feature is available in Android? I haven't played with that. I tried to look for it.
You can turn on battery saver, which I think automates which ones it does. I've never been able to, I guess I haven't looked for it, but I haven't seen where you can do what Rachel was talking about.
I'm pretty sure you can, because I think that's what Nick does with his phone. I do the same with he has an Android and I have an iPhone. And Rachel, I do the same thing. But yeah, I'm pretty sure Nick does that too.
So no endorsement of this information that I'm about to share because it was just a quick Google search for Android users, but it looks like how to reduce your data usage. There might be some tips in there for reducing that background data.
And I feel like it's the battery's going so fast already. In my battery thing right now, and it shows me how, what percent of the battery it uses, and a lot of them just say background activity on it. And so what does that mean? Is that where maybe I haven't closed the app and so it's still active, or what is that?
Can you guys hear me still?
We can now.
Okay. For some reason, it's not letting me share this link. I don't know why. It's like this action couldn't be completed. Please try again later. I'll try again. I don't know what's going on. Yeah, so Mary, yeah, a lot of times that is not apps that you forgot to quit or turn off, but just apps that use background data. So for instance, Google might be pinging back to the server to report your location, for instance, so that it can, so if you do open Chrome and search for restaurants near me, it knows where you're at. So that's an example of background data that might be being used. So yeah, if you have a lot of apps that are using that, they can definitely eat your battery. Some things like Twitter and Snapchat can also do that, just to keep your keep the latest data on your phone to kind of sync their data to your phone, so when you open it, you get stuff right away instead of having to wait for it to pull. So. I don't think it does, Sonia. I don't think close all apps kills that background data. But let me check that one.
So if you don't use Siri, mine says it uses 2% of my battery, but maybe you can't turn it off on an iPhone?
Siri?
Yeah.
I think there is an option, maybe Rachel knows, or another iPhone user. There should be an option for, I think there's an option for turning off Siri, but it might be kind of tough to do.
There is an option to turn off Siri. I get annoyed every time I accidentally touch my home button and Siri comes on. So Siri went off right away. There's under settings, it's called Siri and search, and you can turn Siri off under there. I know she does. She has a couple of different options too, I think. But under the settings, you can turn Siri off.
Yeah, I think I just did. Thanks.
What about other stuff that, other tips or tricks? Maybe for Android users, it'd be widgets. Are there particular widgets that you use to get to quickly? Tips for screenshots, camera. What other kind of things are you interested in, or are you using to kind of save time and make your life easier with your smartphone?
Hi, this is Sonia. I am really trying to train myself to use the voice assistant. I know somebody said they were just turning Siri off, but I am the worst texter. It takes me forever, or maybe my text messages are too long. So I'm trying to train myself to do the OK Google and have hands-free typing. Of course, sometimes that can be I think they're only improving on it, but sometimes, they type in something you had no idea, you had no intent of saying, so sometimes I retyping it, which doesn't save a lot of time, but for the most part, I'm finding it very, very helpful, and it saves a lot of time. I just have to constantly train myself to do that, and I don't know, I think some people think it's annoying when you talk on your phone. I try not to do it in public. This is more like when I'm at my desk or not maybe necessarily out in public, but I'm really liking that and just trying to get into the mode of doing that more frequently to save on my fingers.
Thanks, Sonia. I
That's
like
funny,
that.
Amelia.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
love that.
it realized it wasn't me, but it would like flashed open. It was funny. I use the remind me feature a lot because you can say like, okay, Google, remind me to order pizza when I get home, like, whatever you need to do. So I'll do that a lot when I need to do something when I get to my office. And I think that helps a lot.
So Greg is saying in the chat that he uses Microsoft Launcher for Android, so his phone runs closer to what a Microsoft tablet would run. Do you have you have an Android phone, Greg, but you're using this Microsoft Launcher. Can you tell us a little bit more about that if you have a mic hooked up?
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I
Testing
heard
the
you,
mic.
Greg.
Okay. Yeah, I've got a Samsung S9, and I had a Samsung S8 when I had AT&T, and the launcher basically just changes the setup so that you get you get kind of that how do I describe it? But like I get the different wallpapers that like Bing would use and stuff. I'm more of a Microsoft guy, but then the apps, it's set up kind of like how you'd scroll through all of your apps like you would on your tablet. So when you go to like your start button, it brings them up in that A, B, C, D kind of a scroll view instead of just having big pages full of apps where you'd have to organize them. So that's kind of nice if you have everything in alphabetical order. But it was just something I liked from the old Microsoft phones. So that was something I liked about Microsoft phones back in the day. And then on your device management and stuff, if you go to your settings on those Samsung phones and go to device management, the newer ones have basically the optimize button, and then it just kind of clears all your storage, and any of the apps that are crashing, it'll go through and just go, hey, I fixed this for you. And I try and do that at least once a day, or restart my phone at least once a day. It's a big one. Those are the tips I've got. That's it.
Thanks, Greg. Those are good ones. I like the scrolling list of apps. I know I get kind of frustrated by the pages of apps and trying to get them organized. So that's awesome. Anybody else? Does anybody do this? One of the things that I like to do is I have my wife and my son as on my Android phone. I can set them up as widgets. So they're just a button on the screen like opening an app, and it just one-touch dials them. That's kind of a handy thing. That's something you can do on Android just by adding the contact widget and just choosing the contact.
I've got one more I forgot about, if I can jump in. I use a password manager, and you can kind of shop around for a couple of them. But the one I use, basically I enter a master password, and then for each, like any of your bank accounts or any of your websites that you frequent, but you don't want to remember 80 different passwords, you'll enter it once there, and that thing will auto enter your passwords for you. It takes a little bit of time, and anytime you change one, you have to go in and edit the link that you have for it. But basically, it acts as like a password vault, where you can have a very strong password for that, and then everything else can be secured there. Because I'm sure everyone's aware, we have 90 different pages that we all have to sign into, and I can't remember them all, and I don't have my tablet with all of my handwritten notes always with me. So that's kind of nice to have something where I don't have to remember all of them anymore.
Do you mind sharing which password manager you're using, Greg?
I use LastPass. Buddy's an IT guy for Bobcat, and he kind of led me on to that one because he had good work. He's had really good luck with that on iPhones, and I've been using it on Android, and I've been using it on my home desktop. I haven't put it on my work one. I don't think I will. So, because I'm getting hopefully a new laptop here. Mine's a nice old large Elite book, so I'll be upgrading here soon.
I use a password manager too. I use KeePass, and my husband and I share it, and it syncs, and it's great because then we can log into each other's stuff if something happens to us.
Awesome. Thanks, Amelia. Thanks, Greg.
So do you guys pay for that on your phones then? because I was using I use LastPass on my computers actually for work, and then some personal stuff too. And at one point, I needed something when I just had my phone with me, and it was like 14-day trial of LastPass on your phone, and then I was supposed to pay for it after that. So is that something that you guys do?
Mine doesn't. I think I don't know if the KeyPass app is free. It syncs to a document that's on my Dropbox, but I can't remember if I paid for it or not. I know for sure we don't pay for it monthly though.
You can do either the free or the paid for the LastPass, and I've never done the paid. You get better, I think there's better support and some other stuff if you pay for it. But then I think they eliminate like some ads and some other stuff if you don't, or if you do pay. But I never paid for mine, at least not yet.
Right. I do pay for mine. Yeah, just to have it on other devices, so I have it on my phone. I don't know all the features, I guess, off the top of my head, because it sounds like what Greg's describing is similar to what I do on my phone. One thing is that it will auto-update, like if I have a change password and things like that, but I don't know if that's something that is part of the price features or not. At the time I purchased it or signed up, you had to have a paid account in order to download the app and use it on your phone, I think is how it worked.
Okay.
How about other stuff? Any other thoughts or things you guys want to share about tips and tricks for your smartphone? Or if you have questions for your colleagues about technology or innovation, or just something that you want to share, maybe a success that you've had recently?
If people are looking for a good translator, Microsoft Translator works really well. Like I said, I'm shameless plugs for Microsoft here, but when I went to Puerto Rico, a friend of mine's a Spanish teacher down there, and when I was showing her what I would use to communicate with her in Spanish, she's like, well, that does really good as far as getting the syntax right when you're typing in English and switching it over to Spanish. And then one other one I use is Here Maps. It's not Google Maps, it's not any of the other maps, but they're the company that kind of runs your like your Garmin's and stuff, I believe. But you can download maps so that if you don't have data, you still have the maps. And you can actually use it in places where there isn't any signal, like most of western North Dakota. So
You can download Google Maps too, Greg.
oh, well, I haven't used Google Maps in a while, so.
Michelle, do you have an iPhone or an Android? I have no idea. Can't help you. Sorry.
Do you mean turning, closing all of the apps? Is that what you're talking about, Michelle?
I just noticed Sonia put on there that she's been clearing the cache on apps. Supposed to help. I'm not sure what that means.
Okay, so if you have your iPhone in front of you, double-click the home button, and it'll pull up all the open apps that you have, and all you have to do is swipe up on them, and they go away, so you close them.
Yeah, I do that all the time.
Perfect,
Okay.
that's what you're doing.
Okay.
There are some caches that might be on some of the apps. The biggest one that you run into is your browser. Your browser will, just like your browser on your computer, will cache a lot of information about websites, your browser history, and things like that. So that's another. So sometimes that can help depending on what might be in your cache. Here's a link for during your cache.
And then some of the apps on the iPhone, they carry the data and documents with them, and that takes up some storage space. And so every now and again, I will go and get rid of that, which sometimes requires you to delete the app and re-download it and start over. But it clears up a lot of space and a lot of that kind of stuff.
Where do you find, besides deleting and download or re-downloading, where do you find the cache for those apps?
If you're asking me, I find it after a lot of agony. in looking, because I only do it like once every 6 months. Let me check here.
I posted a link in the chat, Rachel. I don't know if that link answers your question.
I'll check it out here.
So for apps, it looks like general or settings, general iPhone storage, where you'll see the apps, and then take a look at the entry for documents and data. And that might be where you're finding those files that that Mary's talking about. Other questions, comments, things to share?
So for my Manure Hauler meeting this year, I used Kahoot as a way to have my manure haulers interact with me, and that's all on smartphones. And it worked on whatever phone they had. And at first I was like, well, maybe only 5 of the 15 or 20 will actually have a smartphone, and that's kind of what I was warned of before I went to that meeting. And every single one of them pulled out a smartphone. My 21-year-old and my 70-year-old, both of them, all of them had smartphones, and they pulled them out. They were able to play along. They were really good sports about it, and so it was kind of fun to interact with the smartphone doing Kahoot.
That's awesome, man.
They actually commented on some of the surveys, like, great way to interact, fun game, neat to play, and whatever. So some of them it taps into their competitive side, and some of them just interaction, and they all knew how to get there before I even told them. So don't count some of your producers or constituents out, no matter how old they are or how producer-y they look. They can surprise the heck out of you.
Mary, I want to see what a producer-y is.
I was going to say, somebody should note that for the NDSU Extension Dictionary. Producer.
Let me grab a picture of my brother, because my brother, my second oldest one, sent me a happy birthday yesterday with like 2 little pictures, an emoji, words. Like, this is pretty huge. I was like, wow, that was pretty good.
So happy late birthday, I guess, Mary.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, thanks for that again, Mary. Anyone else? I see Greg's typing, so I'm going to wait for Greg's message here.
Well, we've used GroupMe with the 4-H ambassadors, and I know some people have used that for other school things too and whatnot, but it's actually worked out pretty well because we've been able to make a different for each retreat or something, so just the people that are there actually get the message, as far as getting from point A to point B and all that kind of stuff. So, and it seemed to work because there are some ambassadors that don't have a smartphone, so it did seem to work whether or not you had a smartphone or not, so, which was kind of nice.
Thanks, Alicia. I'll put a link to GroupMe in the chat too. Thanks, Greg. I'm glad you got a chance to check that out. The book Greg's talking about is We've Tried That Before, 500 Years of Extension Wisdom. I don't know that you can order it anymore, but as soon as I have some order information, I can send it to the extension listserv. All right, anything else?
Sorry, I just thought of something. Does anybody use like a program for mass texting to your producers, and how do you like it? Do you have to pay for it? What's the down low on that, I guess?
So I'll tell you what I know, Rachel, and if anybody else is doing this, please jump in. The only case that I'm aware of where somebody's actually using a paid tool is Grand Forks County had taken over a Trumpia account, Trumpia, that we had used for a pilot years ago, several years ago. That I set up as a pilot. We did some testing on it, and then Grand Forks County took it over. They're continuing to pay the subscription because I am copied on the receipt, so I know that they're doing that, but I'm not sure how successful it is. What we found out then, and this is several years ago, so information could have changed, is that most of the carriers were throttling information, like if you try and text, over a certain number of people. I don't. That number might vary, but so if you tried to text a whole bunch of people in a text group, or if you tried to text using email, so you can text people to their phone through email. So if you do some mass texting like that without paying a company, then they would throttle that information, which might not be bad if you're just trying to get information out and you don't care how timely it is. But if you're trying to use it to like cancel a meeting or something because of a snowstorm, then you wouldn't want that information throttled because some people might get it right away and other people don't get it for 24 hours or something like that. So that was the argument for using a service. These services, another thing that the services do is, provide you that easy way for people to subscribe to your mass text messages, by texting a code to a particular number, then they get subscribed, so you don't have to collect their information in order to get them on the list. So that's everything that I know about it. That was our experience. Amelia's mentioning a tool called Remind, and I think that we used it at conference last year. The innovation team did, and I know I'm involved with a lot of stuff for my son that we use that for theater events and school events and things like that. So that's another option. So I'll let anybody else jump in now and add about mass texting or some other kind of message subscription.
We've
Okay.
used Remind for a lot of our national minor group meetings, and it works really well.
Thanks, Mary. Okay. Well, I think we're just about at 3:30, so I think we'll wrap things up. Thanks. This was a really awesome, interactive edition of the Tech Coffee Break, and I really appreciate all your guys' input and questions. I hope that you learned something. Reminder again, you can find out more about the innovation team at www.ag.ndsu.edu/innovation. And if you join the Facebook group on the link there, maybe we can continue this conversation and share some of these resources on the Facebook group. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have an awesome day.
Thanks, Bob.
Yep.
Bye, everyone.